I've been moored here outside Otherton Boat Haven for a couple of days while I've been editing a video, but that's now done and there is a couple of hours break in the weather, which has been very random over the last few days. It's rainy, it's sunny, it's rainy, it's sunny, but there's a couple of hours now, according to the forecast, where it's going to be reasonably pleasant and not raining. So I thought I would at the very least try to get through the next, it's either 4 or 5 locks that come in fairly quick succession. Let's start by pootling at Tickover past all the moored boats at Otherton Boat Haven. I'd like this kind of mooring, on the canal but at a marina with all the facilities, so if anyone knows of one going in a nice quiet spot in the Midlands, do let me know. As soon as you go past the marina, there's a lock. And look at me go, running like Usain Bolt. It didn't last. By the time I got to the lock itself, I was walking. There, see? On the other side of the lock is a long straight with the motorway right alongside. A shame, as there's lots of space for mooring here, but it would be noisy. The activity of those blades gives a hint as to the weather.
Only a few minutes in, and it hasn't rained, but it is getting rather breezier than I anticipated. Blimey O'Reilly.
A second lock follows at the end of the straight bit. A breeze can make life tricky for pulling the boat to the lock landing when you're single-handed, but I was okay here. Worse though, no sooner did I leave the lock than droplets fell from the sky.
In the time-honoured tradition of weather forecasting, the forecast was wrong. It is raining. Lovely. And blowing a gale. I am a fair weather boater. I'm not cut out for this.
One reason for my dismay is that slippery lock ladders and lock sides make for a dodgy environment for a solo boater. If I was to slip and fall in, I'd be doomed. But having only just started, I was determined to press on, showing a level of grittiness that's not like me at all.
A very, very helpful chap who was walking his dog on the towpath and who does a bit of solo boating himself as well, apparently, not only shut the gates of this lock behind me as I drove in, well, after I drove in, obviously, but has said that he's going to go up to the next lock, which is only around the corner, and open the bottom gate so I can go straight into that one. Then he's turning around and walking back this way, so he's going to shut this lock gate as well, so I don't need to stop and do that. It's just incredibly helpful and very nice.
After smashing crazily through that lock gate in the previous cruise, leaving one open behind me felt all the more naughty, even though I knew it was going to be closed later. I really must learn to chill out about this kind of stuff. True to his word, the chap had opened the next lock's gates, and I sailed straight in.
Four locks done. There's one more at a place called Gayley, which again, it's just around the corner. There's a facilities point there, might as well empty the Lucasette while passing. And then frankly, I'm just going to find somewhere, stop, call it a day. This is not fun. I'm all about the fun in boating, and this is not it.
Again, rather to my own surprise, despite noting these cosy boats and plenty of space, I elected to carry on, insistent that I should finish what I'd set out to do today. But it really was tempting to just stop here and give up. The map shows Gayley and there should be spots to moor. If not, then maybe somewhere just beyond. Here's Gayley Lock and another intrepid boat coming down. Oh, and there's Mr. Soggy on the towpath. At the top, the waste bins are behind the wooden pillars, and the services are off to the right. There's something like 6 water points here, which seems excessive. I rewarded myself for a good effort on all the locks by pausing on the short-term visitor moorings for a night.
Good morning. From here to Autherley Junction, which is where the Shropshire Union Canal comes in and joins the canal I'm currently on, the Staffs and Worcester, is about 7.5 miles, I suppose, and no locks, which means it's a fairly straightforward 3-hour cruise, or should be. There's one bit I'm fractionally anxious about where it goes very narrow, apparently, literally one boat's width. It's quite a long section with some passing points, so you don't really want to meet another boat coming the other way, ideally. But apart from that, it should be a straightforward cruise. The weather, as usual, can't make its mind up. The forecast says unlikely to rain, but I've been looking at the skies and I think there's going to be some spots, but it shouldn't be torrential. Touch wood, fingers crossed, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to head off and see if I can get to Autherley Junction today.
It turns out that once you get above Gayley, there's a chemical plant with lots of no mooring signs for quite a stretch, so it was a good thing I stopped where I did. And now a treat for regular viewers. There'd been no appearances of herons so far in my travels this year, but suddenly on the towpath was a bold one who didn't even fly off as I went past. It was at this point I realised the chemical plant security would think I was filming them. I reassured myself that a suspicious character was unlikely to be doing bad deeds by narrowboat. This is the stretch where you can't stop. Lots of prohibition notices, including on those bridges carrying pipes from one side of the plant to the other over the canal. Once past there, oh my, another heron, but this one was flighty. Of course, he only stopped a few yards further down, so promptly had to fly off again as I continued past. At this point you turn the corner at Hatherton, where there is another marina. Again, it's another spot where I wouldn't say no to an online mooring. The name Hatherton might ring a bell, as it's here that one end of the disused but under restoration Hatherton Canal is to be found, as mentioned in the video that I did about the Blitchfield and Hatherton Canals Restoration Trust. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. And there is that Hatherton arm. It doesn't go far currently, but one day when restored you'll be able to get across the top of Birmingham that way. Meanwhile, I was continuing south and had to veer to the right under this bridge. I nearly messed this up from peering down the Hatherton arm instead of paying attention. Good thing no other boats were coming the other way. Usefully, there's a note on the steel beam to let you know where you're going. Like a day or so earlier, I picked up a hitchhiker briefly. It had a little rest, then fluttered off. Let's enjoy a little tranquil cruising.
Having gone under the M54 motorway, I'm now very close to that extremely narrow bit, which in the guidebook is marked as very narrow cutting. And there's a boat coming, so I'm going to stop talking.
For a while I was convinced the guidebook had been playing some kind of practical joke, because as you can see, the canal is far from narrow here. Indeed, it felt more like a river than a canal, and it went on for ages like this. Where was this supposed really narrow bit, eh? And then, suddenly, you get funneled down into a section that is a very tight fit indeed. I wasn't deliberately close to the side here. That's all the space you have. Let's see another view. Yup, it is a narrow bit, and it goes on for about half a mile or so. I confess to absolutely flooring it through here so as to minimise the chances of meeting anyone else. There are a smattering of passing points, but they're not exactly huge. You could just about squeeze out of the way in there, I suppose, but I'd rather not. Finally, after a nail-biting bit of boating, the other side of this bridge marks the end of the squishy bit, and you can breathe once again.
And there the narrow bit ends at Bridge 67. Well, that was invigorating. That is about as high stress, high drama as it comes in narrowboating.
And at this point you emerge into the suburbs of Wolverhampton. You can just see houses and gardens on both sides. Going under this bridge would bring me to Autherley Junction, a name that might be familiar if you saw much earlier videos. It's here that the Shropshire Union Canal emerges to join the Staffs and Worcester. And it's here that I turned around, not doing a terribly accurate job of it, but there was nobody moving, so no problem. I stopped here for one night. But why did I turn around? What is going on?
I've been here before. I came down the Shropshire Union to Autherley Junction, turned right and then went that way all the way down to Stourport. So I've done that bit. The idea of this cruise was to do the north half of the Staffs and Worcester, which I hadn't done before. And once I get to Autherley, I've done the whole length of it. So now I've turned round. I'm going to go back the way I came, back up to the Trent and Mersey, and onwards from there. But where? Well, I'm going to leave that as a mystery for the moment.